So we're going to go over creating equations from patterns. So they've given you this pattern in your book, right? And it kind of looks like an L shape. A couple of things we want to figure out before we even start creating the equation is obviously we want to know how many of an item is in each figure, and then we're going to figure out what it's changing by every time. Once we get that information, it'll become much simpler to create the equation, and we're actually going to work backwards. They usually start with figure 1, but we're going to create our own figure 0, we'll call it, okay? So we'll have our own figure if we were to go back 1 with that pattern. So in figure 1, how many happy faces do we have in this case?
3.
3, great. Figure 2?
4.
And figure 3?
5.
Okay, which means that this is increasing or decreasing, first of all?
Increasing.
And by how much?
1.
Okay, good. So our pattern is to add 1 every single time, right? That increasing pattern is very important. So what it's changing by, because that's the number we're going to attach to a variable. And usually you guys use n for a variable. Is that what you guys use?
N or x.
N or x? Okay, so we can use n or x. So we'll do a version of n and a version of x, okay? And so the number we increase by, which in this case is just a value of 1, is the number we're going to attach to it or multiply by the variable. So when you see a number written beside the variable, that usually means multiplied. Okay, so this is technically 1 times n or 1 times x, but they'll just say 1n or 1x. So that's usually our variable, the thing that moves the most. And we usually add another number. It's our constant term, okay? And our constant term is kind of what we start with. And this is the term that can sometimes be difficult to figure out, okay? And just so I have a little room to create that figure 0 we talked about, and move these things down. Okay, so let's move these down just a little. Okay, so let's say we were to actually say that the very first thing in this was figure term 0. We know that figure 1 had 3. If we were to reverse the pattern, so instead of going up 1, obviously if we were to go back, what would we have to do?
2.
We would have to go down by 1, exactly.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, we'd have 2 left. That's exactly what we're aiming for. So in figure 0, we would actually only have 2 happy faces, right? That's going to be what our constant term is in this case, okay? Because the n or the x in our case stands for our figure number, okay? That's what they're talking about, what figure number we are. So we're going to take this value, 2, and because it's a positive, it's not a negative value, right? Figure 0 was positive 2. That's what we're going to start our equation with. So let's go with the x one, just because once you guys get into high school, we usually just use the variable x. So our equation is 1x plus 2. Okay, so we have that equation. We want to check to make sure it's correct, that it works with everything we're doing. So let's take figure 3. This 3 here is our x. We should be able to plug 3 in for this, and it should give us an output. So we input 3, an output of how many terms are in figure 3, in which we counted there to be 5. So to check this, there should be 5 when we do this. So we're going to plug, we have 1, we input the number 3 for the x. Okay, and let's see what this equation kind of outputs for us. When we do BEDMAS, 1 times 3 would be what? Yeah. And then the only thing left is 3 plus 2?
5.
5, that's right. So what that means is the equation we created, highlighted over here, 1x plus 2, that equation can solve any single number of terms, so like R2 or 3 or 4 or 5, for any figure number. So let's say we wanted to go to figure, I don't know, 60. Okay, we can plug 60 into this equation, and it would tell us how many there are in it. Okay, so how many numbers are in the total equation.